In this video, we'll look at the FileReader class in Java. We use the FileReader class to read character data from a file. Some other readers don't read characters but bytes. This can be necessary for non-text data. As I mentioned, FileReader is a built-in Java class. It's a subclass of the input stream reader, and it implements the reader interface. Alright, so in this example, that I'm not going to code live, but I'm going to walk you over here right now, we are having a try with resources. And in this try with resources, we are opening up a file reader that's looking for a file called file.txt. Well, where is file.txt? As you can see, it's in the root of our project. So it's right underneath this level. And this way, it can actually find it. The content of file.txt are, at this moment, the very interesting hi there. Alright, so if I go back here, that's what I do in the try with resources. But then I'm doing a few wonky steps. So on line 9, I'm creating a int data. And then that while loop, that might need some processing. This is actually quite a standard way to do this, but it's a very clever way. So let me try to explain this very carefully to you. So what we're doing in the while loop is that we're reading from the file. We're using reader.read, which is reading a character from the file. So only one character. And we're storing this character in the data, which is an int. So this makes sense because read is actually also returning an int, even though it represents a character. But the reason it's an int is because it's -1 when it has reached the end of the file. And if you remember from one of the very early lectures, the char primitive cannot be negative, it's unsigned. So therefore, what the reader.read is giving back in this case, the read method, it's an int, because it also needs to be able to be -1. So in this data, int, we are storing whatever we read. And as long as it's not -1, we have not reached the end of the file yet, so we keep on reading. But every time we do a read, we actually also are going to go one level deeper. So if we would do this twice and then only print it once, we would skip a character every time, to put it that way. So this is why we do it in the while. So we data equals and then we read. And by reading, we move the cursor of where we're reading. As long as we did not reach the end of the file, we keep on reading. And then we do something special. For every character that we read, we do a cast to char. Well, let me show you what happens if we don't. If we don't do this, we get a whole bunch of integers. So instead of hi there, we now get a whole bunch of integers. So these are the ASCII values. So 104 equals age, 105 equals I, well, etc. That is why we need to actually cast it to a char. And then we get the character representation, which we can make more sense of. So let's go ahead and run this again. And you can see that it now says hi there. But let's see that I would be looking for another file that's not there. So this file is not there. Now the catch block would say an IO error has occurred because it's a file not found exception. So let me actually also show you the type of exception in here. So I'll run it again. And you can now see that it's indeed the file not found exception. So let's change this back. And there we go. This is how to read from a file. So this is a bit funky and there's actually multiple ways to read from a file, but this is a very common way to read from a file. So once more, we use the try with resources to open up the file reader. And this means that the file reader will be automatically closed, so we don't need to deal with that. And we then use the read method to read the data from the file, one character at a time. But read is an int because it's -1 as soon as we reach the end of the file, and therefore we need to have the char type cast on line 11 to make sure that the data is printed as a character. Otherwise, we can't make a lot of sense of all the numbers in our console. So FileReader is a great choice when you need to read character data from a file, but often you also find yourself needing to write to certain files. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing in the next video. We're going to have a look at the FileWriter class.